Today's episode is sponsored by Dancesoft Gamers. Dancesoft Gamers is the leading distributor of video games and other consumer gadgets like the podcast microphone sets, ring lights, headphones, and affordable smartwatches, and many other cool gadgets. For these and more, visit their website at www.dancesoftgamers.co. That is www.dancesoftgamers.co. I know I'm super black, but
You're not super black. No.
Mujevale. My name is Bane Kibuka, and welcome to another episode of the Ugandan Ball Talk Show.
How you been though?
I've been good. How have you been?
I've been all right. I can't complain. I've been good. Been enjoying life.
I see that. I seen you went to Uganda. Okay, I was planning something I wanted to say before even, but the last time I had you on the podcast, we recorded a podcast which did really well. I know of a lot of people like they would see the numbers on YouTube, which my YouTube is still growing. The viewers on there still growing, but like with the Spotify and the people who listen to the podcast on like audio platforms, it's really good.
Those are the numbers. That's where the numbers are at. Trust me, I know.
And your episode, that's why it was one of my top 4 episodes I've ever recorded on here. And that comes with a lot of things. I mean, it comes with what you had to say on here. And I've had a lot of people say good things about it. And a lot of people in the diaspora. And especially some of your friends too. And I'll shout out to Linda, the one you recommended to be on the podcast. She was on the podcast and she said good things about you and how you super smart, which I mean I got that too when I was talking to you and the wisdom you had to share when you're on the podcast. And I
That's the Queen of the North right there.
I know. I recorded with Melissa Molonji, and she was also saying
Munamasaka.
That episode is not yet out. We're waiting.
I'm waiting for that one.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that one. I'm holding it till she gets back on the, because it won't do her justice to release it when she's not on the internet.
She's offline. She's working. Well, not working. She's going for exams right now. So
yeah, I'm holding that.
Little cat.
Yeah. Coming here wants to record with me, but anyway,
no worries at all.
So when I had you on the podcast, did really good, and I appreciate you for that. And I've always wanted to have you back on here to just anytime I get a chance to sit down with you. I know offline we joke a lot about sports and do other fun things, but anytime I get to sit down with somebody and just have a talk, it's my therapy, and it's always good for the listeners. But before we kick off our deep talks, and I've messaged you about what we're going to talk about today, but I'm gonna just go around the association. I copied that word from one podcast I listened to. It's an NBA association. I listened to Draymond Green's but he calls it the association because NBA is NBA association.
Yeah.
I like that, like go around the association. But what I mean by association is like just life, our life. And first of all, we're gonna talk about the Manchester United.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
Did you see us yesterday?
I saw.
Just answer the question. Did you see us yesterday?
I saw, but you're playing reading.
Yeah, but we're back though.
Yeah, that's facts. I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
2 things I can't argue with: you're back, and Rashford is good. Like,
listen, he's one of the best in the world right now.
For real.
Like, everyone can see that he's literally one of the best in the world right now. And I don't know what Ten Hag is doing with that team.
Yeah,
but the way he's been able to manage individual players and revive their careers is insane, especially not just Rashford, but someone like Wan-Bissaka, for example. You know, last season we were calling for his head, and now, you know, we were standing up and applauding his amazing performance. So I hope you're seeing that. I hope you're enjoying this little run you are on. You know, but it's coming to an end. Jadizan, next season, come what may, the trophy comes back to Old Trafford.
We also just studying, you know, like we're just getting back. We're just losing. So Arteta is just
you lot are doing a Leicester.
Yeah.
You lot are doing a Leicester, you know. You're just having that brief moment, you know,
Uh-huh.
where luck is on your side, where everything's going well. But I see Arsenal as the best team in the league this
Yeah.
season. But I don't look at that team and think to myself, they can dominate the league for the next few years. I think the league is so strong and it will continue to get stronger that Arsenal will eventually fall back in the shuffle again. Do you get it? I look at City and I think City's not going to have the same kind of season they've had this season where they're losing games that they shouldn't be losing. I look at Chelsea and I think with the signings they're doing, they're going to be back. I expect Liverpool to definitely come back stronger. And we all know that the kings of English football are back, and next season we're taking our throne back. So it's
Yeah.
like I I don't look at the Arsenal team and I fear it moving forward. I give you lot credit for this season. I think you lot are without a shadow of a doubt the best team in the league this season, and I do think you're gonna win the league.
I don't know. I feel I'm slightly different from what you just said. Like I feel different. I feel like Arsenal is just starting now, and I feel like what Ateta is doing to this team, like the people
Mm,
he's bringing in, like we
mm,
just starting right now, and just we're gonna be there. What I said on Twitter, after we played Manchester United, I said, yeah, I you guys are rival, and for me, I know we hate Tottenham, like Arsenal fans, we hate Tottenham.
mm-hmm,
But for me, growing up, it's always been Manchester United. Like that's my rival right there. Like I know they have the hate for Tottenham, which I hate Tottenham too. But for me, growing up in Uganda, we've been Manchester United, Arsenal, those two, and that's been my rival. But I said something on Twitter, and I was like, you know how
mm,
much I hate Manchester United. I feel like these next 5 years, it's gonna be us, Arsenal, Manchester United, just like City was with Liverpool, and
mm,
that's what I see right now. That it is like going to be battle between you and us, like
mm,
1 or 2 for these coming seasons at least.
You know what? It's very difficult for someone to understand that, especially here living in the UK, where it's almost like traditional rivalries have already been set out, where it's like Arsenal, Tottenham, Man United, Liverpool. Do you understand those kind of, Chelsea, Crystal Palace, West Ham, Millwall, those kind of traditional English rivalries? But as for me, growing up as a black Man United fan in London,
Mhm.
growing up at the time that I grew up, it was Man United, Arsenal. In
Yeah.
your family split, Man United, Arsenal. You go to school, and it's like when it comes to black people, the black community, black football fans, I think the biggest rivalry for me is Man United versus Arsenal. That's for me when the season comes out and they're announcing the fixtures. The first fixture I'm looking for is when we play in Arsenal.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I want to know. When do we play Arsenal? When do they come to Old Trafford? When do we go to the Emirates?
Mm.
That's for me. It symbolizes my childhood,
Yeah.
and I grew up in the era. I'm a Wenger versus Ferguson, child. I'm Keane versus Vieira. That's my era. That's when I grew up, really loving and enjoying football. So all these other teams, it's like, yeah, they're rivals, but it's not as personal to me as when it comes to Arsenal. Like that's personal, and that's the rivalry that I look forward to every single season. And it's what we love about the sport. It was one of those things where it's rivals, goals, you know,
Mhm.
chaos, everything in one. And you can tell how personal it was where Arsenal fans were being arrested in Uganda for celebrating. Like they
That
didn't
was
celebrate
funny
beating
though.
Tottenham.
Yeah.
They didn't celebrate beating Tottenham or any other team. But when they beat Man United, the whole country erupted. So I mean, listen, that's for me away from just football. When it comes to sport, because I'm a huge sports fan, I follow pretty much every
Yeah.
major sport there is, and apart from American football, I tried to get into that. I don't understand the sport. No, I understand it, but I don't understand the appeal.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm biased, but I
I'm
love the
with you.
NBA. You know,
Yeah, I love the NBA too.
yeah,
I know you're
I
both
love the NBA.
Boston Celtic fan.
Celtics, man, I bleed
Yeah.
green, bro.
I'm a Warriors fan. I don't know if you've been to
Okay.
post. Yeah.
No, I
So
didn't even know that.
last year you were post in the playoffs. Like I saw your post, but
Yeah,
I
said
never
anything.
because I wasn't sure we're beating Boston. Like
Mm,
I wasn't sure we're gonna beat them because they were really good. And
yeah.
I remember, I think the first 2 games, I switched off. I stopped. I turned off. I turned off ESPN. I turned off
Mm.
everything on my social
Because
media.
you thought it was over, yeah?
I thought it was over. And I didn't want to hear anything. ESPN,
Mm,
any results. Like I
mm,
wanted to just keep my mind straight because I
mm,
really. But yeah, I picked up on NBA, and I love the Warriors a lot, and
mm.
yeah, yeah, I'm a big Warriors fan.
Yeah.
Back to the United thing, I was gonna tell you this one story, and I don't think I've ever shared it anywhere. Back when I was still in high school, when you guys hammered us 8-2,
Mm-mm.
I didn't go to class for the whole week in high school. I did not, and that lives rent free in my life. And also, the other thing
Uh,
that happened this season that lives rent free in my head is losing for you guys because that's our only loss in Premier
mhm,
League. That it still hurts me. Like no matter what we do,
mm.
I look back. I'm like, we lost to United 3-1.
You wanna know how? You wanna know how bad it is?
Mhm.
If you lot are to go on and win the league, yeah, I don't want you lot to lose a single game for the rest of the season. I don't. I want you to win every other win or draw the rest of your games, and you win the league, so that you lot know that even when you're celebrating
Yeah,
your win,
no, you
when
lost
you
to
look at your record, there's gonna be that one loss, and that
United.
one loss will be Manchester United. And I need you lot to hold that and understand that even at your best, even when you lot are winning the league, yeah,
Yeah.
we still have your number.
So you touched on the Ugandan celebrating Arsenal win, and
Yeah.
actually, when I said association, I was planning on talking about a few things happening in Uganda to just touch on that.
Mhm,
What was your take when you saw that the police arrested them? I know they might have gone overboard, like
mhm.
celebrating, but what did you take out of that when you saw they got arrested?
Um, I laughed initially, yeah, and the first thing I thought to myself, yeah, the officer that ordered the arrest must be a Man United fan who was upset. Yeah, that's the first thing that I was, because I was thinking to myself, if I was in Uganda and I was a Man United fan as I am, and I'm a police officer, and that happens, obviously by law we understand the law in Uganda. You can't have what do you call it, any sort of parades or whatnot without permission from the state, from the police, and yeah, they did break the law under the law. Now, whether the law is fair or not, that's up for debate. But legally, yes, you understand they did break the law. But I don't. I think there's times where you enforce the law, and then times when you let it go. You know,
Mhm.
times you just turn the other cheek, because
Yeah.
I don't think they were causing any sort of issue, any sort of harassment. They weren't. You know, they weren't bothering anyone.
Right.
Just Arsenal fans celebrating their win, and as much as I was hurt about losing the game, I just felt like that was excessive. And I felt like whoever ordered the arrest was definitely a Man United fan. It was definitely one of my brothers who ordered who ordered it, because it wasn't needed. It was unnecessary. And I'm sure they let them go, but it's just it's a football celebration. Just to see it, they're not harming anyone. I understand why the law was brought into place to begin with. Do you understand? It was political. It
Yeah.
wasn't brought into law for things like this, but for you to then enforce it for this, I felt like that was a bit excessive.
Yeah, that's how I felt too. Like, I know it might have been too much excitement, but they were not
Mm,
hurting anybody, they were
mm.
just expressing their joy. So I feel like, yeah, they added some.
I don't know what's gonna happen when you lot do in the league.
I don't, exactly. That was in my head. I was like, if they could celebrate like this today, like,
Mm,
what if, how, when we win the league, what's going to happen? It's gonna be above. I don't know. It's gonna be crazy.
yeah.
And I hope we do win the league. The other one about Uganda. There's been a lot of people talking about the airport experience. You've seen over Twitter,
Mm,
Facebook, TikTok,
mm,
everywhere.
mm.
You personally had any incidents at the airport?
No. And I've seen this a lot, but I think for me, it's I don't think I'm the right person to answer that question, because I have family that work at the airport. So
Okay.
for me, it's always a smooth transition. It's always easy going. I've never had any issue going through the airport, because of the fact that I've got connections at the airport, that whether I'm leaving or going or arriving, sorry, it's always just a smooth transition for me. However, I do see where that is possible, and I do understand, and I do hear so many stories of people complaining about it. And when you see these stories, and people are coming out telling you how they've been forced to miss their flights, and it's sad and it's frustrating that at times we are our own worst enemy.
Mhm.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? Where you're gonna you're gonna hate on someone or hate on something, you're gonna abuse your power. That's what you're basically doing, right? You're in a position of power, and you then abuse that power to ruin someone else's life.
Hmm.
Do you get what I mean? People are missing flights for the first time. People are potentially, I saw one story of someone who was meant to be coming to the UK for the first time. And, they weren't allowed because they weren't paying someone 400K. And I was like, that's how can you interfere in someone else's life? You're there to do a job and you're paid to do a job. Why are you interfering in someone else's life? And I feel like that's an expression of hatred, and it's a reminder that corruption goes deeper than just political,
Hmm.
and it's within the hearts and minds of so many people. We need to fix people's mindsets and people's hearts, because the environment that we're in Uganda, it has led to selfishness, it has led to greed, and it has led to, what's the word I'm looking for? I grew up with understanding that it took a village. I grew up understanding that as a Muganda, yeah,
Hmm.
like ngo Muganda or kulango manyinti buli Muganda.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense? Yeah. You grow
Mhm.
up understanding that we're all one, we're all a family. Tuliba Luganda, we're brothers, we're family, right? And I feel like in this day and age, that's been lost. We don't have that. We don't look out for one another. We don't see each other and see an extension of ourselves. And we live in a very selfish generation where we seem to think everyone does things for themselves as opposed to the collective good, where people make decisions that benefit themselves and only themselves without taking into consideration the effect that it can have on others or the wider society. For example, now that person, if you do that, now it's out there, now people are talking about it, right? If the president then turned around and came through and said, you know what, I'm getting rid of everyone who works at the airport, and I'm bringing in new people who are innocent, right, who weren't involved in that, are also now losing their jobs.
Right.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
Because you're not
bagenda say mulya mamba abeera omu n'avuma
exactly.
like, yeah,
Exactly. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So it's
yeah.
like we've lost that idea of brotherhood, that idea of unity, of family, you understand, of village, and scripture says that I'm a Muslim, right? And we're told that you're not a believer until you want for your brother that which you want for yourself. Do you understand? Like
Mhm.
if you know that you would be in a position where you wouldn't want someone um making you miss a flight for no reason other than for the fact that he wants you to pay them. Yeah. If you know that if you was in that position, you wouldn't want someone to treat you like that, then don't do it to someone else.
Yeah.
But we don't have that kind of mentality. We don't have that kind of mindset and that yearn to see others succeed. And I think that's the worst thing as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, where potentially a lot of the people at the airport, they've never been on a flight.
Right.
Does that make any sense? And
Mhm.
that hatred in of it, is thinking, well, you can stay here with us kind of situation. And
Yeah.
like, I hate to see it. I genuinely hate to see it.
I feel like some people too, they just want to show power, when they give them this office at the airport. Like, I have
Mm,
this authority over you at this
mm,
moment. Like, I
mm,
could make you miss a flight. And when you're desperate, they get you at the time when you're desperate, and they want to
yeah.
take advantage of that. Like, hey, I'm gonna make you miss a flight, and
Mm,
you have to give me this amount of money for you
mm,
to be able to go, which I hate. And I was just thinking too, like, I was wondering if they just get people who have not traveled before and use advantage of that. But I've also seen other people sharing their experience who have been flying, like some
mm,
known names in Kampala in Uganda, and I'm like, how is that happen? Because
mm,
for me, for you to make me miss my flight, like in
mm,
Uganda, it gotta be a reason, like, why am I missing my flight? Is my
mm,
passport expired?
mm,
My boarding pass is not working. You gotta be a reason, and if I can't fix it, I'm gonna try to. But the only one time, and I've shared this in the previous episode when they got me, was I forgot to carry my yellow fever book because
mm,
they for those at the airport,
mm,
and they were holding me there for in a room, and they asked me for 300K, and I told them I don't have it. But at that time, I was willing to stay there as long as they can keep me there.
Mm.
because I was flying to Uganda. I'm not going to the US. You know, when
Mm.
you're going to the US, when you have to go,
It's a
then that's a
different story. Yeah.
different story. But when I'm going to Uganda, like I'm in Uganda, you can keep me here. It's 1 hour away
Mm.
from my home, so I'll
Yeah.
stay here. And when you want me to
Not who
go,
said that.
yeah.
So
So that's what I basically did. But I told
yeah.
them, hey, I'm from Masaka, and one of the
Ah,
somebody told
another one. Another Munamasaka.
I'm not actually from Masaka. I just use an excuse.
Oh,
But
okay. I
one
thought you
one
another
one person
Munamasaka.
one person commented on there and said, "So you use Masaka as an excuse because do you think Masaka is that far from Entebbe?" and, and I looked it up. It's at least 2 hours. But I usually
Yeah.
arrive in Uganda at night,
Mm,
so like 1 a.m. with Brussels.
mm,
So I never got a chance to get there during day. And for me, that was my excuse because I was like, it's 1 a.m. I need to drive all the way back home. And I didn't give them money, but they were like, hey, you better have this yellow fever when you're flying back.
mm,
So that way. So I got it. I got it.
mm,
But I had it. I just forgot to carry it with me. I think
mm.
I looked up that they had it. But it's crazy to see those stories. And I don't know if somebody can just do something without when I know it also comes with ignorance. Like, some
Mm,
people who have never flown before, like I mentioned, it's easy to come up with something like you did wrong and
mm.
make a big deal out of it. But I feel sorry for the people who have gone through that and hopefully it gets corrected because a bad picture.
But I think it goes beyond that. I think we're at a stage right now where
Mhm.
where right now we're in a situation where there is someone's not giving you a reason. The only reason that you have to give them money. You've
Yeah,
done nothing wrong. Everything else checks out. You've got everything that you need, and they literally just want you to give them money, or they won't let you onto the flight.
that's
And
crazy.
that's when you know we're in a dangerous generation where I want to touch that swallow, where people are not even looking for excuses. People are just literally outright just telling you, like, they're shameless in their corruption. And
Yeah,
from the moment you're in a society that is shameless about its corruption, then you know something is deeply wrong. Do you understand?
yeah.
And
That's why Bobby Wine said abantu ensonyi bazinaba. Like there's
mm,
one song he sang like ensonyi bazinaba bakyatya kuswala.
mm,
Yeah,
and yeah, like, and it's
yeah.
like it's what it's that saying as well in Tima Jakaluba, like people are just hardened and they just don't care in Uganda. And
Yeah.
it's a sad thing because we've got such a beautiful country,
Mhm.
and again, it's like the culture. And for me, can I tell you something? Yeah,
Yeah.
we can sit here and talk about everything that's wrong with Uganda politically. Yeah, we can talk about everything that's wrong with Uganda in terms of how it's run, and how people interact and so on and so forth. Yeah, with all the social issues. Yeah, my question is, when did we stop being cultured people? Do you get it? When
Mhm.
did we stop being people of ethics, people of morals, people of manners? That's the thing that I want to know. Because our culture, specifically the Vaganda culture that I can speak of, yeah, is embedded in principle. It's embedded in manners. It's embedded in 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 obanchogera how and pisa. Do you
Yeah.
understand? Obuntu obulamu. It's very well structured, and we know what we have to do as individuals, how to look after ourselves, how we have to interact with our neighbors, everything down to how you interact with your elders, how you interact with your family members, be it your mom, your dad, your dad's brothers, your mom's sisters, your grandparents, your cousins, how you interact with neighbors, how you interact with religious leaders, how you interact, like, for example, in Buganda, we used to have this thing where everyone had to have Ewabe Toke, yeah, Chidia Kabaka. Do you
Yeah.
get it? Where you understood that at any moment that the king can come, he needs to have something there. But that was just for food security. Do you get what I'm trying to say? So it's like, when did we stop thinking and moving and being cultured people? Because away from the politics, if we did what we had to do as people and we carried ourselves the way we're supposed to carry ourselves, we will see so many of the problems we see in Uganda evaporate. Do you get what I'm
Yeah.
trying to say? Like what we're seeing at the airport. If you had that love for your brother that you meant to have for yourself, those things will not be happening. There are things that we can blame the government for, but then there are things that we need to blame ourselves for. You understand? The government is there to give us institutions to give us to provide for us an environment, right, that can allow us to excel. Do you get it? Healthcare, infrastructure, education, security, these things that the government's meant to do. When it comes to culture, when it comes to manners, when it comes to characteristics, when it comes to the way you carry yourself, when it comes to the way you interact with your fellow man, yeah, that's on you.
Mm-hmm.
That is something you need to take upon yourself. And I think we live in an environment in Uganda today where, because the political spectrum may seem so tarnished, we've decided to put everything on the government.
Mm-hmm.
Am I making sense? And
Yeah.
we're relieving ourselves of the responsibilities that we have upon ourselves anyway. So it's like, that's my biggest problem. When did we get to that point? When did we stop caring about culture? When did we stop caring about customs? When did we stop caring about the ethics that make us who we are? And again, specifically in Abaganda, when did we stop okubera Abaganda? Because
Mm-hmm.
when you look around society, it's like we remember Tuli Baganda, Kumikolo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, we remember our culture when it comes to functions, but outside of that, do we carry ourselves every single day? Do you understand? Understanding who we are as a people and what we're supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
You know, yes, the politics is a problem, and there's a lot we have to do. But even if we had a government that took care of every need it's supposed to take care of, yeah, it's
Yeah.
not going to be able to fix the social issues within ourselves, because that's what we're supposed to do.
It all starts with you. Like you don't want to do, and that's how I live my life. And you mentioned that the problem is some of these people, they don't have the fear for God in their lives. And
Up facts.
when you quoted the Quran, or like the scripture you talked about, um it takes a lot for somebody to even bring that up in life, or to relate that to your personal life, because I wouldn't want to do something to somebody that I don't want them to do to me.
Mm-hmm,
I have
mm-hmm,
that in my life, but a lot of people don't. Like they don't even have the pity, that grace, or the mercy in their lives to see, like, man, oh, I'm gonna make this guy miss his flight. He's gonna have to buy a new ticket,
mm-hmm,
which is, they don't think about that. Like,
mm-hmm,
what if, put yourself in their shoes, like, think stuff like that, like what they're going through. And also, like, to just add on, not only the Baganda, like, and the Baganda, we have to do our job to get love one another, but like
mm-hmm,
as a country too, all of us, there's some things like you mentioned, like it's not, we're not gonna blame the government for everything. There's some things
mm-hmm,
we have to do
mm-hmm,
ourselves, like taking care of each other. But when you're not taking care of one another, nothing is gonna change. We can cry for the change we want. We can cry for Bobby Wine to be the next president. But even when Bobby Wine is the president and you don't love one another, it's still gonna be the same thing, and we're gonna be crying for all that throughout.
100%. And I feel like there's a lot of people that are expecting change to come and then change every little thing. I'll give you a perfect example. It's such a small example, yeah, but it frustrates me so much. But in its smallness, it highlights a bigger problem, right, within society, and it really hits on the head of what I'm talking about. Yeah, I remember just being in Uganda and littering. Yeah, when you see someone just throwing rubbish on the floor and going about their business. And I'm like, so if you see the streets of Kampala and they're dirty, you're going to be like, "Ikesisi, kolachi." But
Yeah.
it's like, you're also not taking the responsibility of cleaning up your own mess. Does that make any sense?
Mhm.
And then it's like, do you not respect the land you're on? Am I making sense? Do you not
Yeah.
understand where you are? Do you not understand that we used to have this identity, Takadea Kabaka? You can't just be throwing dirt, and litter on the streets. Am I making sense?
Mhm.
And then it's like, what kind of how does that? I remember for me, and this is where I thank my mum so much, right? My mum raised me and my siblings and she used to tell us one thing, constantly tell us one thing: Temun Swazanga.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't ever embarrass me. And she always used to run that down our throats. Don't you ever embarrass me. And the thing that the point that she was trying to make is the fact that the way you carry yourselves outside of the home is a reflection of the way you've been raised inside of the home.
Mhm.
And for the most part, it's facts. Like when you do something well, yeah, oh man, no, I know, no, but they're referring to your dad. Do you get
Yeah.
it? Oh man, I've on. Do you get it? Your father gets all the praises, but when you
Yeah.
do something wrong, when you lack manners, when you lack discipline, when you lack
Actually,
ethics, a lot of the times
they
people
have
tend to
that in
put.
Uganda. Omwana omulungi asanyusa kitaawe, omwana omubi
Yeah,
avumaganya nnyina. Yeah.
thank you. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
And it's like people look at that. So my mum always knew that, and she always said to us, "Don't ever do anything that embarrasses her. The way you carry yourself, because you have to understand uh, you are openly representing. You are a representation of the way you were raised." And the way she raised you in the home. So something as simple as just littering on the floor. For me, the reason why that bothers me is because I'm here thinking to myself, you are literally, you're telling me that you were raised up knowing that you can make a mess and someone cleans up after you.
Yeah.
For us, it wasn't like that. You couldn't do that. How? Where? Do you understand? And just respect the land you're on. Respect the fact that when you're outside, that's not your property. It's the street. But we want to see change. We want to see a better Uganda. But then we are ourselves contributing to the problems of Uganda. Let us do our job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I'm very big on. Yeah. You do what you need to do. Do you understand? And
Mhm.
anything you can't control, yeah, then you leave it up to those who can. Am I making sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Do your job. Carry yourself the way you're supposed to carry yourself.
Mhm.
Clean up after yourself. Do you understand? Like,
Yeah.
be respectful to the people on the streets. Tomalaga or Ghana, Tomalaga Vuma. Don't carry yourself with someone Ngomuntu Taine, Pisa, Ngomuntu Kwebakus or Bolonji. Like,
Yeah.
don't embarrass your parents. And this is why I loved, and I think it comes from studying and educating. And this is why I love studying Buganda culture and the history of our culture, right? And one of the things that I loved learning, and I felt like this was so amazing and so wise, was the fact that back, this is again pre-colonial, right, at a height of the statehood of Buganda, right? Did you know that not any random person could leave the state? You
In
couldn't just
Uganda.
leave Buganda for the sake
Yeah.
of leaving Buganda. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Mhm.
If you People were trained, yeah, people were trained, both men and women were trained with how to carry themselves when they left Buganda,
Yeah.
right? So if you was in on the Swahili coast, for example, doing trade, yeah,
Mhm.
when people looked at you, they didn't see an individual. Am I making sense? They didn't just see you. They didn't see Hakim standing there. They saw a Muganda, right? So the way I carried myself when I'm outside of Uganda had to be of a positive reflection of Uganda. I had to demonstrate strength. I had to demonstrate wisdom. I had to demonstrate manners. I had to be a good representation of where I come from, of my
Right.
land outside of there. Does that make any sense?
Mhm.
Because other people, that most people you're going to come in contact with once you're outside of your land, are never going to come to your land. So
Yeah.
you need to represent the best. But if you were out there acting a fool, yeah, and whatnot, yeah, Ogenakufumi said Guanga. So
Yeah.
not every random person, not every Tom, Dick, and Harry could leave Uganda to go do trade and go do business and go do here and whatnot without being properly trained, because we understood that when you leave your environment, you are a reflection of your home,
Yeah. Where you
right?
come. Yeah.
Right. So now it's like we don't have that anymore. Even though it's not on that wide scale, just you stepping outside of your home. When you step outside of your home, the way you carry yourself in society when interacting with people has to be of a positive representation and reflection of the home that you come from.
Mhm.
Don't do that. Your parents deserve better than for you to be the reason why people are questioning their parenting skills. Like,
Mhm.
how dare I, as Hakim, how dare I do anything out there in society that can make someone question the way my mother raised me?
Mhm.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. And a lot of people don't have that. Like a lot of people don't think about that. They just, I don't know. They just go do. I don't know if they have even that on the back of their head. Like, hey, the way I present myself will do this and this and this to my
Mm,
family, to myself, my reputation.
mm,
But what I was gonna ask you on that was, how do you think um I won't say the government, but like how do you think the situation at the airport can be fixed? I know we've talked about how the things they need to do, but how do you
mm,
think situation like that can be fixed? Because I don't know if the reason is this: some of these employees don't get paid, some of them they don't make enough money. because that's what we see from the traffic officers. Like they'll stop you and they do the same thing. Like, hey,
mm,
toying up permit,
mm,
nkuleke ogende, like,
mm,
and that has been the story of the day in Uganda. Like,
mm.
I don't know if even this question will answer that will give us an answer, but like, just
Um, I think that's a reflect. What's happening at the airport is a reflection of a breakdown in the whole system from the top down. You hit the nail on the head earlier on, right? And I think what you said, you didn't really. I picked up on it at the time, right? But I didn't. I didn't jump on it. You. The fear of God, right?
yeah,
It's knowing and having that understanding that no one can tell me nothing. You don't fear consequences because you don't believe that consequences are going to come your way. So whenever someone is in a position of power and believes that they can do whatever they want and get away with it without ever being checked, without ever facing consequences, they're going to abuse that power. So the reason why that is the fact that someone at the airport, you couldn't do that at Heathrow.
yeah,
Does that make any sense? You
yeah.
couldn't do that at Heathrow
You can do it in the US too.
because not only would you be arrested, not only would you lose your job, you could be arrested. Why? Because there's a chain of command and people know that there's consequences for your actions, right? So now in Uganda, the problem is that even those who are at the top of Entebbe, for example, yeah, of the aviation sector, I don't know who runs Entebbe, yeah,
Civil Aviation Authority, yeah.
yeah, even those at the top here, you think they don't know? You think this is the first time they've heard of it? They know. They just don't care. They're just
Yeah.
not willing to. They're just not going to do anything about it because it's not of importance to them. Am I making sense, right?
Yeah.
And then and I think I've said this before and I say it again. Poverty is often used as a weapon to control people. So when people are in a desperate situation, especially poverty, and as you said, whether they're not being paid or not being paid enough or whatnot, they resort to other means of trying to make a living. Do you understand? Now, when everyone all the way up to the top are struggling, yeah, the
Yeah.
chances of them caring, yeah, and if you'll probably even find yourself in a situation where if you did call up the person at the desk at Entebbe and
Mhm.
someone higher up came down, they'll probably want money too.
Yeah.
Do you get it?
Yeah.
So there has to be actual consequences which are enforced, yeah, from the highest levels of government right the way down, yeah,
Mhm.
where people know that um I cannot scam someone or I cannot, try to fool someone to pay me or whatnot at the airport because if anyone gets a wind of this, I could lose my job and I could be prosecuted. Now, until there's that kind of structure in place in Uganda, it's not going away.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I also feel like I don't know if it's gonna go away because the same Buganda have that saying like "akacha mama mera bokagolo kamenyi kabumenyi." It's like something
Mm.
that was planted in that direction,
Mhm.
and it gets to a certain stage.
Yeah.
If you try to correct it, it's just gonna break. Like
Break. Yeah. The system
maybe
breaks.
if when the system breaks, then a new system will start up. But I don't know.
100%. Do you know what I'll do? Do you know what I'll do? Anyway, me, I'm from a different era. I'm a different cat. Me, the first thing I'll do, yeah, if I got wind of this, yeah, the first thing I'll do, everyone at the airport, you're gone. I'm bringing in the military.
You have your family there too.
I'm bringing in the military. Yeah, no, you see what you said about the family, yeah. That I've got personally, me, yeah, back in there, everyone. Do you get it? Everyone. Do you know why?
Why?
Because the benefit of the country, yeah. So
Mm.
here's the thing, yeah. Your loyalty has to be with the well-being of your nation first.
Mhm.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
have to make decisions that are for the greater good of your nation first, even if it comes at the detriment of your family. But unfortunately, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people don't think like this. This is why people like Gaddafi were so successful in what they were able to do. He said he will build a home
Yeah.
for every single Libyan before he builds a home for his family. His dad died before he was able to build a home for his dad because he understood the importance of first looking after the nation because of the position that he was in. Am I making sense? If you want to solely be responsible for your family and your family alone, get a normal job. Don't put yourself in the public sector. Don't
Right.
put yourself in a position where you have to deal with the lives of others. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Don't put yourself in a position where you are representing an entire nation, because that's what you do when you're at Entebbe. If you're not willing to put the country first, you do not belong at Entebbe Airport,
Hmm.
because a lot of the times you are the first and last point of contact for visitors.
Yeah.
It's like that first impression and last impression. How someone is treated at the airport can either make or break their entire trip. Do you get
Yeah.
it? So if you're not willing to to put country beyond ahead of family, then you shouldn't be there. Then go find a normal job somewhere where you know that your only responsibility is your family.
Mm.
But when you're in a position like that, you know that there's you have a responsibility that is greater than you and greater than your family at that moment in time, and that's your country. Me, the first thing I'll do, put me in power right now.
Yeah.
Everyone's gone. The military's coming in, and we're gonna work it to show these people, to let them know. Yeah, it won't be permanent, but it's to let them know that if you don't get your act together, you will lose your job full time. And we have an active army where the vast majority of them are not doing anything, because we're not in any real active war zone conflict that requires the entire military. So we've got a lot of military personnel who are doing absolutely nothing, who would love the chance to be able to serve their country correctly. It's like
Yeah.
equivalent to the United States, yeah, where if they were to bring in the National Guard,
Yeah. They
when
did it at the
the
capital.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly,
The
and they
capital.
did
Yeah.
they did that here in the UK where the paramedics were striking, and they brought in the military. Okay, you lot strike, yeah, but the country keeps moving. The
Yeah.
military's gonna come and do it. That's the first thing I would do.
That's a good thing about these developed countries, like however much we deal with a lot of other things in these countries
Mhm.
too, there's some things that they do really good, like protecting the people. That's
Yeah,
like they do that. I mean, I'm saying protecting their people, but there's some people like killing other people.
yeah, yeah.
But one question I was gonna pose on that, the Entebbe airport that we're gonna ask, like, and I asked this on my Twitter. I was like, if this is happening to the Ugandans, what does that, like? How do the non-citizens get treated at the airport? Because the people were commending were like Ugandans, like, hey,
Mhm.
they bribed them for money. So my heart just went to the people who don't even know. I mean, unless they're just because they're traveling, they know the rules when they're traveling. But I was thinking about the non, like the whites, the people who go to Uganda, and I wonder what they go through. Or
I
that
don't
they,
think it happens.
yeah,
I don't think they go through what we go through. I generally don't think. One, what I know about white people, yeah, they make a noise. Do you
yeah,
understand? If it happened to a number of them, oh, they'll be online. They'll be
yeah,
on Twitter. They'll be everywhere. They'll be on social media making a noise. They're like, look what happened to me here. Look what they tried to do. They don't keep quiet like us. The
yeah,
problem is a lot of us, this has been happening for years. And we hear the stories behind closed doors, but not publicly. Suddenly someone's come out publicly, yeah, either on Twitter or whatnot, and now everyone else is coming out and saying, "Oh yeah, that happened to me too. That happened here." Da, da, da. If it happened to foreigners, we would have heard about it, because
right,
that's something. And I think they won't do that because they know the impact that can potentially have on the tourist sector. Am I
mhm,
making sense? And
mhm,
I don't want to say it. I don't want to say it, but unfortunately, we all know that there is a way that in Africa, foreigners are treated better than citizens. If me and you go back, yeah,
mhm,
I could have a British passport on me, yeah. But the fact that when you open my passport, it says born in Kampala, and the fact that I am a black man,
yeah,
they're not seeing a British person.
mhm,
Am I seeing? They're seeing a Ugandan with a British passport. That's what they see, and that's what I am, by the way. Yeah,
yeah,
and I'm happy. That automatically changes the dynamics of how they're going to communicate and interact with me. Now, I would like to believe that that should be a positive thing. You should see me as a fellow brother who's returned. Do you get
mhm,
what I'm trying to say? That, oh, Mugana Wafa, come here. I should be coming back to a warm welcome.
yeah,
But instead, we're hearing stories of our brothers and sisters actually getting the opposite. I don't, yeah, to answer your question, I don't think it happens to foreigners, especially white people, because we would hear about
yeah.
it. Like
That's when you said it. I was like, yeah, definitely. They would have
yeah,
reported anywhere, everywhere, and would.
anywhere and everywhere. But nah, yeah, the noise that it would have happened.
So I had a really
Uh,
long plan for the actually the message I sent you about the plan on recording, but I figured like I wanted to talk to you about some situations and stuff going on in
mm,
Uganda. and that would have been a good conversation because I wanted to hear your take on this situation. And we've actually used almost a whole hour to record on that, which, I mean, we can always schedule another one for those questions that I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I can just keep this for this topic because it won't make sense to have
Mm,
another topic on top of this one, which we've
mm.
done a pretty good job talking about this on you in about Uganda. Do you often listen to a lot of like news in Uganda? Do you follow
I
Uganda?
used to. I
Yeah,
used to be addicted to Ugandan news, and then I just had to stop because of how depressing
yeah.
it was.
And some of
Um,
it is just funny.
yeah, some of it's fun, it's hilarious. There's a
Yeah,
lot of it. You hear certain things, and you're like, this could only be in Uganda. Yeah,
like like the thing we just talked about, like arresting Arsenal supporters, but then you
yeah.
hear something happened in Uganda, and like, where was the police at? You
Where
know?
was the police? 100%. Yeah, they're quick to jump on footballers celebrating, but then when actual crime is happening, but then that happens here. For
Yeah,
that, that happens everywhere. Let's be real. The difference between corruption back home and corruption in the West is that it's more overt back home. Does that
mhm,
make any sense? And
yeah,
it's more on a lower level, yeah, where you're interacting with individuals on a day-to-day basis, people who work behind the counters, people who, police officers and soldiers and security guards, and you interact with people who are overtly corrupt. Who gonna say, yo, you want to come through? Just pay me. Doesn't make any sense. Give me a little something, I'm gonna let you through, and so on and so forth. Whereas here, corruption isn't on that level at all,
mhm.
at all, but it's at the highest level, yeah, and it's
Yeah,
more subtle. So we see things where there are things that happen on the on a social level where you're like, the police was quick to sort this out, yeah. Like, I'll use an example. In the UK, during lockdown, we had the situation where during lockdown you couldn't have anyone from outside of your household. You couldn't interact with people, whether it was your family. If you did not live with them, yeah, you couldn't interact with them. You had to stay apart. You were hearing people dying in hospitals alone, where mothers couldn't be there, fathers couldn't be there, husbands and wives and children and so on. People were dying alone, right? Yet 10 Downing Street, yeah, the Prime Minister's office, Boris Johnson, they were doing up parties. Yeah, they were partying while we couldn't even leave the house,
yeah,
where we had to stay at home under the risk of being arrested. Where if you were outside for more than half an hour, because they were giving you half an hour jogs, yeah, to go out, stretch your legs for half an hour, then back in the house, you couldn't be in the park, you couldn't do none of that. People were being arrested and people were being fined. If you held a party, someone, you were being fined up to £10,000, right?
wow.
This was happening, but whilst it's happening, 10 Downing Street is throwing parties, yeah, and that's fine,
Yeah,
and no one is saying anything about that, right? Now, it's only once people, pictures started leaking, and even at the first time when the reports came out, the police is like, no, there's nothing to see here, we're not going to investigate nothing, right? Because they felt there was no proof. But once the pictures started coming out and it was clear that they were having parties, then the police came in to do something. Now, it's the same thing in Uganda. At the lower level, yeah,
mhm,
you're going to see the laws enforced brutally. You're going to see that, because they have to keep this image, yeah, to the public, that we're doing what we have to do. Do you
yeah,
understand?
mhm,
But those at the top who have the money, those who have power, they can get away with things that me and you can't. And
yeah,
that happens whether it's in Uganda or whether it's here in the UK or whether it's in the United States of America, where we all know that listen, when you talk about corrupt nations, yeah,
yeah.
America has to be at the very top of the list.
And I'm glad. I liked what you just say. Like, it might
Mm,
not be a corruption of like giving them money, because I'm sure
mm,
the authorities here make a ton of money that
mm.
they're not
Yeah.
like, they won't be they give me 10K. No, they
Mm,
won't do that. But like, it will be in a different form, like just how you
mm,
just explained it, like the kind of corruption of just like
mm,
letting other people do this and letting other people do that, like just picking a few to do that. And that's
mm.
how they put, like you say, they put it on the highest level.
Not
That
much on the highest level, yeah. How
even
they're
if
able to
not
evade
the
paying
bad crap,
taxes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Things like
yeah.
that. It's crazy.
Inside trading, people like Nancy Pelosi, who, is
Yeah,
Everyone knows, her deal with inside trading at the capital, where like there's things that they can do that others can't.
mhm,
And people talk about corruption in Uganda. It's just that the reason why people talk about corruption in Uganda and Western medias will talk about the corruption in Africa is because, unfortunately, the corruption in Africa and in other third world countries is accessible to the average man.
yeah,
It's because me and you can access that level of corruption. We
yeah.
can be speeding, yeah. We get pulled over by the police, give them omutwalo gumo, and we go
Yeah.
about our way. Am I
I
making
literally
sense?
did,
Yeah.
I literally did that when I was so actually, I was thinking about. Let me tell you a funny story. I went back to
Mm,
Uganda, and
mm,
I wanted to take my family out because usually when I go back to Uganda, I take them to like a game park. I take them
mhm.
to do something fun, just
Yeah.
as a family. So we were there, and they were all tired of driving, and I didn't have my Ugandan license because I think I lost my
Mm,
wallet when I was here. So I
mm,
had my brother's license, and we got pulled over, and like I was driving through a game park and I didn't see
mm,
any speed signs, but the police told me, hey, this part is like 50 miles, no,
mm.
kilometers an hour.
Kilometers. Yeah.
I was
Mm,
like, I didn't see any signs. Like, no, you just have to know. Like when you're driving in a game park, this. I was
mm,
like, okay. So he was like, I'm gonna give you a ticket for that. And I had lived in the US for a long time. And in the US, when the cop says I'm gonna give you a ticket, there's nothing you can do about it. He's gonna
it's
sign the
game
ticket
over.
to you.
Yeah.
So I told the guy, yeah, that's fine. And my dad looks at me, he's like, what did you just say? He said, that's fine, just give me a ticket. And my dad was like, you can't just tell the police to just give you a ticket. Go talk to
Mm,
him or something like that.
mm,
And that's what the policeman
mm,
wanted because he
mm,
kept looking at me. He's like, hey, that's what I wanted. So can you come step out of the car? He took me behind the car. He's like, hey,
mm-hmm.
I can either give you a ticket or you can give me umutwaro. And
Or do something. Yeah.
I was like, umutwaro? I just pulled it out right there because
It's what?
yeah,
10K. Zizo.
it's like, what? And the guy let me go. But
Yeah.
that's funny. I was just sticking to my rules of like, yeah, just give me my ticket.
Yeah,
That's
but that's because corruption is accessible to the normal person, to me and
yeah,
you. Does that make any sense? That's why
yeah,
we can see and feel it, and that's why people make a lot of noise about it. Whereas in the West, it's not accessible to us. You can't do. I like you couldn't bribe a police officer who's pulled you
no,
over, yeah, for a speed ticket in the US, yeah. But
you get arrested for
the
that.
son of a congressman, yeah, if he is stopped by the police, can avoid going to court or even paying that fine through dodgy deals behind closed doors, and then that's thrown out.
Yeah,
So the difference is that in Uganda, corruption is accessible to everyone, whereas here in the West, it's not. It's not accessible to the average person, but it's a very much an elitist game. Yeah.
mm,
So that's the only difference for me personally.
yeah. I don't want to keep this going a lot because I know the listening span of the people sometimes doesn't go beyond one
Mm,
hour.
mm.
But it was a really good conversation. Thank you for
Nah,
the
thank you.
I'm gonna try to pull this out as soon as possible while the topics are still going on. And this is something I want to do on.
Mm,
And if you'll be open for that, that would be amazing. Like if there's like a topic in Uganda or something situation going on, I'd love to start doing that on like other than I mean my podcast is about like interviewing people on their
mm.
stories. But I want to incorporate some of the things like live events happening in Uganda and
Yeah.
discuss about them, have a conversation about them
Mm,
and I don't really have a person that I can sit down and discuss
mm.
with. But if you're open for that, and if time allows, if we get like something happens in Uganda, I was like, hey, I want to record a podcast about that. Let's
Hit
do
me
that.
up.
All
Hit
right.
me up. Hit me up. I mean, um, when it comes to Uganda, like I'm so passionate about it, and I I could talk for days when it
Yeah.
comes to issues surrounding Uganda because I like to look at I like to look beyond the headlines.
Hmm.
Am I making sense? Yeah, beyond
Yeah.
the headlines. So on the surface, we could look at it and think, oh, corruption at Entebbe Airport, right? But I
Hmm.
look beyond that. I was like, I'm trying to think, how can it even happen? Who's allowing it? Why has it even
Right.
gotten to that stage? What are the socio-economic um conditions that have led to such acts being
Hmm.
normal? It's not a one-off. So I like to break those kind of situations down. So listen, anytime, hit me up.
Yeah. And that's
Hit
what
me up. Like I'm blessed. I left the office, so I work from home now anyway.
Yeah,
So just hit me up anytime and we can make it happen, man.
that's awesome. Yeah, I'll stay in touch with you and we can make that happen. So, Hakim, once again, thank you very much. And I
No, no
was
worries. Thank you very much.
glad to hear. So, see
Yeah,
you
no, I
on the next.
appreciate that.
All right, man. Keep in touch and hit you up with any.
Nah, hit me up if anything, bro. And listen, I really appreciate what you're doing as well, man. Keep doing what you're doing, honestly, 100%.
Thank
It's
you.
needed out there. We need to have these kind of platforms and these kind of conversations because there's so many different platforms out there and so many different people doing so many different things. But when you have your own niche, when you have your lane and you have your your plot within the digital real estate, yeah,
Mhm.
hold on to it. Do
Right.
you get what I'm trying to say? And run with it. And I love the consistency that you have. So now keep doing what you're doing. Really do appreciate it. And yeah, man, anytime hit me up to why.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, all right, no worries, my bro. Take care.
Right. Hey there, this is Bonnie Kibuka, the host of the Ugandan Boy Talk Show. Thanks for watching and listening to my podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you share it with a friend and recommend somebody to this podcast. Don't forget to leave a feedback on this podcast because that's how we grow. And also don't forget to share, like, subscribe, and comment. Join us on our social media platforms on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So we would love to hear from you. Thank you very much and be blessed.